Hey everyone, today I'm going to be teaching you how to use Talend Open Studio. This is going to be kind of a quick video here. This is more or less to just kind of get you started, and I feel the best way to do that is through kind of a basic example. So anyway, let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is navigate in your web browser to talend.com/download. Once the page loads, any moment now, here we go. All right, once the page loads, scroll past this non-free software and download this free tool under data integration. That's going to be what you want, and it's going to download this zip file. All you got to do is extract it, and you can run the software straight out of here. There's no installation or anything like that. You do need Java on your computer, which most computers have these days, but if you don't have it, just download Java and then go ahead and run the executable in the folder. I would recommend running the 64-bit, especially if you have more than 4 gigs of RAM. This isn't working on my computer for whatever reason, but you can run the 32-bit version if you want. That's what I'm gonna do. So just go ahead and start it up. And I apologize for the audio quality. You're going to be hearing the mouse clicking and keyboard tapping and chair squeaking, maybe the phone ringing, stuff like that. I just don't really have the time or resources lately to make a quality video. But in the future, I will be covering some of the topics in this video in more depth. And here you'll get kind of a welcome message. There we go. Okay, so let's close out of that nonsense. And during the first setup here, you're going to see this is checking for items installed. You're going to get this pop-up only once. And I would choose only this first one. I've had issues with the optional third-party libraries. I don't think they're necessary, hence, optional. But the first one should be all you need. So just hit finish, and then choose I accept and accept all. And that'll take maybe, 30 seconds to a minute to finish. But while that's going on, I can kind of show you what we're going to be doing. And I'm going to be referring to as these projects as converters. Now, technically, you could call them jobs or data flows, and you can call them that, of course. But because in the past I've referred to with other data integration software, I've referred to them as converters. That's what I'll be referring to them as here. So let me show you what we're going to be doing. We're going to be making a converter that takes two files, charges and details. Charges has a list of charges, hence the name. The first column is going to be the ID, customer ID. The center column is going to be the amount charged, and the last column is going to be the date. The details file just has customer information. The customer ID, full name in one field, street address, city and state in one field, and then the phone number. So we're going to take these two files and create a new file. And this file is going to contain the customer ID, the last name and first name in their own separate fields, the charge date, charge amount, the total, which will be, let's see, for example, the total field will have these three amounts summed up, and the full address, meaning it will combine the street address and the city-state field. So that's what we will be doing. All right, let's see here. That should be done now. Yep. Okay, to get started, let's right-click Job Designs, go to Create Job. I'm going to call it Converter. You should not leave these blank normally, but for our purposes, we're going to. And this is your workspace. All right, so the first thing we want to do is add our two files. And there's two ways you can do this. The first way is through this metadata tab. And this is what most people would recommend, probably. It has more options and better features. For example, it'll pull the headers from spreadsheets automatically, that kind of stuff. Or you can do it the second way, which is what I will be doing, which is just dragging and dropping a file or a component from this area, from the palette. So I'm going to choose, since our files are CSV files, are comma delimited records here. So let's go back and choose file input delimited. And there's two files, so let's do two of them. Okay. All right, so we can give better names to these. So let's just double click it, go down to view here, and let's change the name to charges for one. The second one, let's call details. Okay, now let's go back to charges. And let's choose our file. So here. Okay, that's charges. Okay, so the field separator is not a semicolon, it's a comma. And since our CSV file has the fields, each are contained, the character that contains each of these fields is a single quote instead of a double quote. So we need to change that. So what we need to do is click CSV options and the text enclosure, change that double quote to a single quote, and do the same for the other one. Field separator is a comma. Click CSV options and change that to a single quote. All right. So the next step is to define the headers, like labeling the columns. So let's start with charges, and every component will have this option here, edit schema. For some reason, these components, they kind of pushed it down here on the bottom, kind of away. Usually they're right here at the top. Every single one of these most of them will have it. So let's go ahead and click Edit Schema. And if you look at our charges file, there's three columns: the customer ID, the amount, and the date. So let's add that. 1, 2, 3. Customer ID, amount, date. Let's change the type of amount to double. Just real quickly, in case you don't know, a double is a I know I'm way oversimplifying it, but it's essentially a number with a decimal point that is very precise. You could use float too, but we're going to use double, so do that. And details, we'll go down, edit schema for that. And let us see what fields we have here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With customer, name, street address, customer ID, name, Name, street address, city, state, and phone. And phone. There we go. All right. Okay, so next. What do we want to do next? Okay, I know. If you notice in this details file, we have a lot of repeats. For example, Monica's repeated 3 times. This Esther Ruff is repeated 4 times. And this isn't good for debugging later if we find that there's some issues. And I'll show you later what I mean by that. But for now, we want to get rid of these duplicates. So to do that, we need to use the unique component. And rather than search it out over here, I'm just going to search in this bar up here. So let's type in unique. And it's the T unique row component. So let's just drag and drop it out here. And let's give this a more meaningful name, like let's call it remove dupes for remove duplicates. And all you have to do to connect these 2 things is right click and drag, and this little line will come up. And that brings up another point, this little connection. Don't let that scare you. These names don't really matter unless there are a few instances where you need to, where it helps to name these, but otherwise don't let this confuse you. Don't really worry about it that much. It's just helpful to see the flow of everything. Okay, so next, let's open this component, and the unique key is going to be first let's edit schema again. Let's make sure. All right, all of these fields that are coming into this component are the same ones coming out. We don't want anything to change. All we want is the duplicates to be removed. And we want that to be done based on the customer ID. So let's check that. And that's all that needs to be done. All right, so let's see. We can combine these things now. Let us do this. Let's use tmap. And I'll explain this in just 1 second here. So let's drag out tmap. And let's call this combine everything. All right, so tmap is the meat and potatoes of this software. And you'll see more what I mean again in just a little bit. I promise. I'll explain things more. So it can take as many inputs as you want and output as much as you want. It can also take that data that goes through it and does whatever you want to it, just about. So let's connect this by right-clicking drag again. And then, you know what, this is a good teaching example. So, and then we do the same with this other one here. Right-click and drag and connect it. Okay. So this is kind of what you don't want. We're always going to have a main row with tmap, okay? The main row, which really should be this, and I'll show you how to change it. In fact, let me do that now. You want charges to be the main row. The reason is that's the main file we're going to be going through. We're going to be going through this individual record, this one, this one, this one, this one. And we're going to be looking up details in this file. Hence why this is a lookup file. So to change it, just click this label here, right click, and choose it, set this as main connection. That way it's going through each of these records, and it's using the details as a lookup. Now here's where naming these might be beneficial, because if you go into the tmap component, and don't let this scare you, I'm going to go in here real quick. Don't bother with any of this right now. Just look over here. This row 2, row 3, that's confusing. You're not really sure, where this data has come from other than by the name of those connections. So let's call this charges. Actually, let's call it charges rows. And then we'll call this details rows. Now if we go back into this tmap component, you can see there's more meaningful names now. So how do we connect these? We need to connect them by the field that they have in common, which in our case is going to be customer ID. So to do this, all you have to do is click and drag down to customer ID, and bam, it links it up just like that. Okay, so hit apply, hit OK. But there's a problem. It's not going anywhere. So let's set the output to an Excel spreadsheet. So let's just start typing Excel and hit output here and just drag and drop. All right, and let's change the destination. We'll call this output.xls. And let's give this another more meaningful name. Let's call it just output. And then connect this to the output. And we'll call the connection to spreadsheet. Again, because anything that's connecting this tmap, you can leave those default names, but it would be confusing later. So let's double click this, and immediately you can see to spreadsheet has been added over here. So what do we want the spreadsheet to have? We want it to have the customer ID. We want to have, let's say, the amount. And let's say we want it to also have, from the details file, we want the name. Okay, so hit apply, hit yes, hit okay, hit yes, and that's it. That's a very, very simple converter. So let's go ahead. When you hit play, sometimes it only works if you click one of these first files here. So let's press play. Oh, and it looks like I forgot to add one of the CSV files. So let's go back and see which one that I forgot. Charges. Here we go. I forgot to add the details file. So let's go back. And details. Okay. Now let's try that again. And it looks like it finished. Let's see. Oh, this brings up another point actually. So that's where these little connections come in handy. You can see we've gone through each individual record in this charges file. There's 28 of them. And so there's going to be 28, naturally it's going to be 28 records that come out because we've gone over each individual one. We're not filtering or changing anything. And each of those records looked up something in this detail file. All right. And here's another interesting bit here. So 29 rows. Remember the details row or the details file had a bunch of duplicates. So 29, all of those names, regardless if they were duplicates or not, left it. So it's 29 total names. And after it removed the duplicates, there was only 12. Now let's check that that Excel spreadsheet. Sure enough, here we are. We have the customer ID on the left, the amount, and the name. And of course the name being pulled from details file. And these two fields, two columns, being pulled from the charges file. Very cool, right? So let me show you something else. So you see these again, this text says 28 rows, 12 rows, yada yada yada. It's kind of getting in the way. So to clean that up, you just hit this clear button. All right. Here's another little interesting component you can use. It's called t-log_row. And this doesn't output to a file. It just kind of outputs to the screen. So just drag and drop it. Go to output and just right click and drag out to that. Now, when you run, and we can kind of open this up here. Oh, I already have this file open, so I need to close out of it before I run it. So let's try this again. Now you can see all the output is just in this text box here, so you don't have to keep checking that spreadsheet every single time. You can just see on the screen. Now, this doesn't look very pretty, so what we can do, again, this t-log_row component, let's change the mode to table, and let's run that one more time. And now, we have a nice formatted table. Now, once you start adding more and more columns, it'll get distorted, in which case, always remember to uncheck this wrap button so you can scroll sideways. I'm not sure if there's a way to set that default not to wrap, but yeah, just a little tip there. Okay, so what do we want to do now? You know what? Let me stop this video here, and then we'll pick up in the next video.